Hang on, George, just look to me for a second. Great.
George Harrison has always struggled with his fame.
Yeah, hair looks great.
Although he says he loathes being in the public eye, he has emerged from a self-imposed exile to promote his first album in 5 years.
Don't do that to me, no chewing.
Since the bitter breakup of the Beatles 18 years ago, this deeply private man has been divorced, remarried, and some say hiding behind the secure walls of his country estate outside London.
Great, George.
While managing on his own to record 8 gold albums in the 70s and launch a respected film company, Harrison has avoided any discussion of the Fab Four until now. He admits he's finally recovered from the ordeal of being George Harrison, the Beatle.
I had no ambition when I was a kid, other than to play a guitar and get in a rock and roll band. And I don't really like to be the guy in the white suit at the front. Like in the Beatles, I was the one who kept quiet and at the back and let the other egos be at the front. It just annoyed me that people got so into the Beatles, 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 Beatles. It's not that I don't like talking about them. I'd never stop talking about them. It's Beatles this, Beatles that, Beatle, 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 Beatle. In the end, it's like, oh, sod off with the Beatles, you know. I mean, screaming crowds everywhere you go, pressmen at your door for years on end, the front cover of every newspaper every day of the week for years. Prying, you know, everywhere you go, trying to find out any little bit of dirt that they can write about you.
You said at one stage that the Beatles were a curse as far as you were concerned. What you're saying is the same thing right now.
It's a lot to deal with. And that's the thing, the Beatles sort of did haunt a lot of us for years, and still do.
And after it was over, his withdrawal was the most painful. They broke up nearly 20 years ago, but their records continue to sell, more than 1 billion, that's billion, so far. They never reunited, rarely talked about what it was like. But this week, 7 years after John Lennon's death, George Harrison remembers.
Wacky mop tops, cheeky chappies, you know, just sort of, oh, hello then, how are you doing? You know, like all the cartoon Beatle things, with the little jokes and stuff.
Okay, what's your favorite song?
White Christmas.
Did you say White Christmas?
Yeah.
It's a good song.
Not in rock and roll.
Christmas.
Oh, yeah, it is, yeah. Yeah, it is. You've heard it.
Very naive, very sincere.
Very charming.
Charming, yeah, but a bit thick.
I hope to have enough money to go into a business of my own by the time we do flop. I've always fancied having a lady's hairdresser, selling, you know, a string of them, in fact.
I remember seeing a clip of you saying, well, when this all flops,
oh, yeah, we'll
I'm
all
going to be
have
business.
hairdressers
Yes.
and stuff, yeah.
Yes.
But that's fun, we said that. You know, we were naive in those days. You see, a big change happened in 1966, particularly to John and myself, because a dentist we were having dinner with put this LSD in our coffee. Now, people who've taken that will know what I'm talking about, and anybody who hasn't taken it won't have a clue, because it transforms you.
In a town where I was born.
After that, I didn't need it ever again. That's the thing about LSD, you don't need it twice.
You've only taken it once?
Oh no, I took it lots of times. But I only needed it once.
In an interview before his death, John Lennon said he was really hurt by you, that you'd never mentioned in your autobiography any of the influence that he had on you.
He was annoyed because I didn't say that he had written one line of the song Taxman.
Hmm.
But
did you tell him that?
Well, I didn't, because he was already dead after that. But the point to that was that I also didn't say how I wrote 2 lines to Come Together or 3 lines to Eleanor Rigby. You know, I wasn't getting into any of that. I think in the balance, I would have had more things to be niggled with him about than he would have with me.
But he said that you idolized him as a young boy, that you followed.
Well, that's what he thought.
And you didn't?
Well, I liked him very much. He was a groove. He was a good lad. But at the same time, he misread me. He didn't realize who I was. And this was one of the main faults of John and Paul. They were so busy being John and Paul, they failed to realize who else was around at the time?
I don't think the Beatles fulfilled everything that George wanted to do by any means. And I think that perhaps he felt sometimes a bit of a junior member. And the other thing is he doesn't want to spend all his life as an ex-Beatle.
Michael Palin, once a member of Britain's Monty Python, has appeared in Harrison's films and remains a close friend.
I think George is now more confident than he's been for a while. He always had an interest in films, but just recently, I think with handmade films, he feels he's really done something he can be very proud of.
Harrison, as movie producer, has financed such films as Monty Python's Life of Brian,
Mona Lisa.
and the acclaimed Mona Lisa, which brought an Oscar nomination to actor Bob Hoskins.
Roger.
You piss off, you know.
Now Harrison is giving Hoskins a chance to direct his first film.
Have I given you a film, Marshall? Have I given you a film?
You know, I don't work like business people. It's the same with music. If I have to try and make a record that will fit into the top 10, then I'm wasting my time. I have to be me. And it's like that kind of thing with Bob. It would be silly not to try to do something with him. You know, from where I sit, I mean, I just think he's so good. He's brilliant.
Give us a kiss.
When I see George, I want to sort of embrace him. He's very sharp. He's very gregarious. He actually loves company and thrives in company and is absolutely excellent company. So, I mean, this is the other side of him. But then he is always still a Beatle. And a Beatle has to live a different life from other people, you know, whatever happens.
What condition was he in when he was in your car?
He was shot.
There were about 6 officers carrying him. He had a little bit of blood coming out of his mouth.
He was dead at the moment that the first shots hit his body.
I'd like to know where you were when John Lennon died.
I was in bed.
I wondered what you felt, losing someone so close to you for all those years.
It's like losing your parents or anybody you know and love. You know, all things must pass. But when it's taken in a violent way like that by somebody else, you know, it makes it very strange. He was very good. He was very good, and he was, in some ways, he was a slight genius. I mean, but apart from that, he was still just some guy like the rest of everybody else.
He was no angel.
He wasn't, but he was as well.
Was he?
Yeah.
For a while afterwards, George was extremely concerned about his own safety. Because, I mean, there are plenty of cranks out there who would think, you know, a carbon copy shooting, maybe even get 2 or 3 of them now, you know. All those nasty things which you sort of laughed at before Lennon's death suddenly must have become rather more serious. And I think it was a bit more difficult to get in to see George for a while after that.
Everybody likes to say, okay, one of your best friends got assassinated, so surely you must be nervous about being assassinated too. You know, I like to take care, but I don't walk around fearing for my life, and I don't think, you know, anybody could be bothered killing me. You know, what's the point of killing me? There's nothing, you know, I don't feel that important.
So Danny and Livy and George came up to this house, and he just was so distraught. I've never, ever had a time when there's so many tears have been shed of just total grief of no death, just grief of what a horrible thing somebody could do to another person without actually killing them.
He was very, very badly attacked, and by the time he died, he didn't even have a single scar on him. I mean, he was like a yogi. He moved on from that physically and mentally, and didn't let it affect him. But it definitely took years off his life, you know. So if you're trying to fight cancer and then you're trying to stay alive for something like that, you know, It's got to take it out of you, you know.
I woke up, I just heard smashing of glass. I jumped up, I woke up George. It must have been about 4:30 in the morning. And I said, somebody's smashed a window. And he said, how do you know? I said, I heard it. So he jumped up, and I ran to the door, and I locked the door. And he said, why are you locking the door? I said, why? Because I'm afraid. That's why I'm locking the door. He said, no. I'm going out there. And so he ran downstairs, which he really didn't have to do, but he felt he had to do because my mother was upstairs, and he didn't want, he didn't know how she was okay. We had a statue of St. Michael, and the wing from the statue of St. Michael was made of stone, had been thrown through the window. And George was on one side and I was on the other, and we looked down, and this maniac just ran in like a Beelzebub with a stick from St. Michael in one hand. He slays the dragon with his spear. He had that in one hand, and I didn't see what he had in the other, but anyway, George started chanting really loud at him. And this guy was saying, get down here, get down here. What do you want? He said, you know what I want. It was just horrible. It was just like this voice from the bowels of hell. And then he just tore up the stairs. He was in a florid psychotic state, and he was tall and young. And they'd come closer to where the room was, and this man was on top of George, trying to kill him, just laying on him in just, I think, the worst way, to have some, physical contact with some horrible person. Anyway, I just ran back in the room, and I don't know, something just took over. And I grabbed a poker. My dad was a big baseball fan, and he used to always say, follow through. That's all I could think of was, don't throw like a girl. Follow through. I mean, it got worse. It just got worse, because I hit the guy several times. I could see the blood spreading down his blonde hair. And then he got up. He got up and he chased me and had me around the neck. And then George got up and jumped on his back. And poor George, he said, God, just when he got off of me, I was thinking, good. Then I had to get up and fight him again. And he'd already been stabbed. But we all fell into a big pile, and I managed to get out from underneath, and George pinned him down. And George said to me, I've got the knife. And I thought, what knife? I didn't know. I thought he was just kidding. I thought he was just trying to fake the guy out, saying, I've got the knife. It's like, I hadn't seen that. Afterwards, we were taken to a good old National Health Hospital with these rickety wheelchairs at 4 in the morning, and it was like freezing. It was so cold. I was just shaking. I didn't realize I was in shock, but they were pushing us down, and we were looking at each other, and we got us in these beds, and they put the curtain around us, and he had a collapsed lung. He had things in and out the other side, in and outside of his leg. I had my head open, and, but just looking into each other's eyes, our eyes must have been like, I said, what the hell was that? He said, I don't know. It's like, I never tried to kill anybody before. And I said, no, neither did I. It's like, but what, obviously we talked about it a lot, and the next day George said, I was lying there and I was thinking, I can't believe it. After everything that's happened to me, I'm going to be murdered. I'm being murdered in my own home. And since I'm being murdered and I'm going to die, I better start letting go of this life. And I better start doing what I've been practicing to do my whole life, so that I can leave my body the way I want to. I was so defiant and so determined. Nothing was going to stop him from leaving his body and having leaping as high as he could go.
I had experience which speeds up the whole idea of, you know, if you have something happen to you physically, then, you know, people can go in hospital or have a, you know, something wrong with them and, you know, have a shock or something like that, and then you think, wow, yeah, I could be dying now. Now, if I was dying now, what would I think? What would I miss? If I had to leave my body, you know, in an hour's time, what is it that I would miss? And I think, well, I've got a son who needs a father, so I have to stick around for him as long as I can, but other than that, I can't think of much reason to be here.